All right. Looks like you should be seeing the report that we've been working from. I've made some updates to show how we moved along pretty well with email integration. Last time we had a bunch of these were still yellow, but now we're all the way through to the point where we've um, finished the launch and we've been through roughly 2 weeks of time afterwards, hearing about issues when there were any, and then trying to get them resolved. So at this point, I'm going to consider that channel is done, and I'm ready to focus our effort on chat. But you tell me, Ben, if you agree with that assessment or have any other things related to email you want to talk about here.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything from the team regarding email or any difficulties there. Um, I mean, one actual pleasant surprise that we have discovered is some of the things that we were worried about coming in, have actually not been an issue. Things like the mobile
Mm.
lockout notifications, those actually are not being passed out. Those are just going straight to our queue, and we're able to assign those out and delete duplicates as normal. And we don't have four different people working the same thing, which is good. So
Oh, good.
uh, that's turned out to be a pleasant surprise. Same with emails that come back in on closed cases. We've those aren't going out to agents as new cases. So that's worked out nicely. So it's a good report on that.
All right, good. All right, well then I'll just leave those green and we'll move on. I think so. Everyone remembers some of the excitement we had last week with our chat looking like it wasn't going to go the way we wanted to, and then it pulled back around. So I'm going to consider that at this point we did a kickoff on chat, which was agreeing that we need to get your folks involved and that we're explaining the code. And now at this point we've shared it and we have an agreement. So the work is actually getting started. We had a first call internally last week with Kevin where we talked about what's needed on the flow inside of CX Engage, and it's now obvious that's pretty minimal until we start to integrate that with the code that's being developed by folks on your end. Is there any more you want to say about how that's looking, Ben, in terms of their ability to start on it or not? I guess the only other thing I can say before you comment is I built a schedule here, being optimistic that we would likely be able to get through this before the end of the month. So I have the schedule stretched out with a launch coming up. I think the 27th might be a Thursday. I'm not sure. But anyway, I picked those sort of out of the air to give us something to shoot for, pending our talking more about that today.
Yeah, that might be on the optimistic side. Just kind of guessing how the development aspect works over on that end of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I spoke with the development guys regarding our call next week, and they said that they've still not gotten word from I guess head of their product team regarding like where exactly they need to place the widget within the application, and get those kind of specs. And so until they get that kind of information, they're not real sure like how beneficial talking about the test environment, having that conversation is going to be, because
Mm.
it'd basically be like having a conversation. And then once they get the specs, then basically we'd have to come back and have the same conversation again.
Mm-hmm.
So we may just want to hold off on that until they get that information, and then we can move forward with it.
Okay. Well, I'll leave that scheduled call in place in case something happens and they can tell you more on Monday. But if we need to move that, then let's just coordinate that next week, knowing
Yeah.
that worst
And
case.
let me go ahead and sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but do want to go ahead and point out that there may be actually be an issue with availability with folks here on the early part of next week due to inclement weather.
Oh, right.
Because in case you haven't been following the news, there's a bit of a storm coming, and
There is? Where?
yeah. So
I just do disaster recovery work for call centers on the side also. Well, Mitel does that also, so yeah. It's gonna be an interesting week.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how we're going to be affected. We don't know how the office is going to be affected just yet, but it's highly possible that a lot of people may be working remotely next week, or at least the first part of it. So availability may be an issue, and so we may have to push back those conversations.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if our emails look like they're not being answered, we'll assume that maybe you came up and landed in a different zip code, and now you're trying to figure out how to get your internet to work there.
Yeah, we're going to hope that's not the case, but
No.
we'll just have to kind of have to prioritize things as they are.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of that going on next week for folks in your area. We hope it's a lot less than we're being told, but I guess you got to plan for the worst.
Yeah, I mean, we are in Atlanta, so we're hoping that it's not going to be as bad. But I mean, you never know, depending on what report they come out with, how things are going to be affected here. But we flashed back to like '09. And we had, significant flooding out where I live, and, we couldn't hardly get anywhere. So you never know how things will turn out. So we're just going to have to do the best we can and roll with it however we can. So.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is, I'm going to leave this as proposed then, since until we get into next week, we really can't be more concrete, but at least we aren't just saying, some point in September or August, which was totally inaccurate. So this is pretty much up to date, and I will send everyone a copy when we're done here today, since there may be some other comments or changes I'll be making down in this section. All right, sure. So moving into the open tickets, we haven't talked about these for a while, so some I have some updates on, some there's not much, but let me just tell you what I have. This one, I thought I had the correct product manager, but I don't. Just before we got on this call, I learned that this is a different person, and so I'm going to have to message him when we're done. I had good luck on some of the ones further down. We'll get to touching base with the product owner, so I have a little bit more on some of the other ones. This one, I couldn't find any indication that this was moving forward, but yet verbally I'm hearing that it is. So I have to get those two stories to match before I can really say anything more than I'll try to get more information before next week. This potential solution may have been derailed by some other priorities. I really don't know how this one has fared. This one I spent most of my effort on since last week. I had a discussion with someone that was going to give me some pointers on how to understand the development calendar and some of the other tools that they use. So that was the Scrum Master who dealt with some different subjects. Then as a result of all of that, I end up sending a message to the Scrum Master for reporting, because that's really the person who can get us the information we're thinking, short of going to the product owner. In this case, I think the Scrum Master may be better because they can see where things are in their priority stacking. And what I found out by doing that is that this one has, unfortunately, even though I raised as much of a stink as I was able to, it has been lowered in priority. What the story was that there were, there's some, this is notes more to myself about it being an initiative and what the status is and so on, but what I understood was that due to the CEO change that we went through and we're still obviously going to be dealing with for a while in August, this team found that many of the things they were working on or not working on got shuffled around, and they had to quickly refocus on areas that the new CEO wanted to make sure were getting the right attention. He disagreed with some of the previous prioritization, and there's not an unlimited number of developers, so that meant some things had to be slowed down. So that's what I am pretty comfortable is the status on this one. And I tried to get some idea when it was going to be addressed again, and there really is no way for me to say. So that's not a great message, but it's as accurate as I can get at this point. And I am the only other thing I'm doing is making sure that the name of us as a client is listed along with some of the other ones that are waiting for work on this same one. I know there's a number of other clients, and you aren't a huge client, but I want to make sure that you're on that list, adding weight to this so that when people see that they have some breathing room, they will make sure this one happens again and gets moved back up. So that's what I can say about presence reporting. And this last one, which was the ability to give messages about where people are on hold and how long their expected wait time is. In this case, the product owner said that this one is actually moving forward, and they were very encouraged by it, but it was sent back into planning because as they were testing it, they learned about some changes that are coming up in the queue logic that are going to force them to take another look at this. So they've got the basic work done. I think it sounds like they're just making some adjustments to make sure that's going to work with some new code that's going to be released soon. That way, when it is released, it won't suddenly stop working. So that's I know this one isn't super important to you, but I know you were interested in it. So that's my status on that one. And obviously this comment about coming in Q2 is not accurate, but as soon as I get a delivery date, I'm going to put that up here instead of trying to change the previous comment about that. That's really all the updates that I have up here. Any questions on those, Ben?
No, you did you did a pretty thorough job, talking about those. So appreciate that.
Okay. All right. Well, Shelly, is there anything more we need to cover from your side for Ingenious Med?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, heck, it's even shorter than half an hour. That's fine. All right. Well, Ben, we'll give you a little more time to be boarding up windows if that's what you're doing with your free time. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I hope the weekend is better than what's forecast, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.